Alright, so I have the windows open here for the breath, and then afterwards I gotta close them because temperature has been dropping here steadily, and it's gonna get down to like 16, 17, which is, not normal for Texas, but anyways. So I'll go ahead and do the breath, and then we'll get on to the video. So we're going to do 2 cycles of the G breath, but we're going to start on nose, aka theta. So I'll go ahead and give the command, and then I'll start giving the guided instructions. So command, and again, as always, you can either say this out loud or you can say it in your mind. Just make sure that it's a standalone statement. So yeah. Lord Jesus Christ resonance. Now begin by breathing the air out of your lungs, out of your nose. Breathing in through your nose. Remember deep, full breaths, breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. And breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. And breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your mouth. And breathing out through your mouth. Breathing in through your mouth. Breathing out through your nose. Breathing in through your nose. And breathing out through your nose. Okay, while that stabilizes, I'm going to close these windows. Okay, so picking up where, well, actually, the previous video that I made called Synchronostats, Psionic Codes, Part 1, I meant to originally make this whole video in one, but for some odd reason I was having iPhone storage problems or whatever, and it was saying that I had no more storage, but yet it was like 31 out of 32 gigabytes full, even though I didn't really have any big files in the phone. So I restarted it after deleting some stuff, and I restarted it, and or I turned it off, turned it back on, and now I only have 10 gigabytes full. So now I have like 21 gigabytes available. So I don't understand it, but either way. we're gonna pick up right where I left off on the previous video, which I happened to have made 2 days ago. So now, yeah, it's been a couple days, but so where I was talking about the minor arcana and the Hob. Excuse my brothers or anybody else in the background there, being a little bit excited and whatnot, and having a little bit of fun. So just try to ignore that. But so when it comes to understanding the Hob in any sort of synchronizations or any sort of cycles with the Hob, the main thing to understand is that of the 13 moons, right, the 7th moon will always stand apart or be different than the other 12. So there is this clear distinction in many various different cycles of 12 moons around 1, right? So you have moons 1 through 6, and then 8 through 13. Those 12 moons are actually of a specific set, and then the 7th moon is one singular moon that stands apart, and I'll explain what I mean by that with this minor arcana cycle. So this basically explains that the tarot is not only cycles of time, right? Each one of the various different cards of the tarot are cyclical cycles of time. They're cycles of time, but they're also archetypal changes within time. So each of the different cards represents various different mathematical archetypes within the changing of time. So I just want to clarify that. So yeah, going back to what I was saying about mirror symmetry and stuff like that, and I apologize for whenever I was talking about like the 0001 codes and all that. I have many various examples that it's much more clear to understand. I just kind of came up with one on the fly just as an example, but I'll have to explain that a little bit later on. But so as you see here, I've got moons 1 through 6, right? And then 8 through 13 with various different suits of the minor arcana. The 7th one I left blank, and I'll explain how I think the 7th moon, and yes, this is what I think. This is speculation, but anyways, so like I was saying, for every fortnight of the Hob, which, like I said, 14 times 26 is 364, and you have 14 cards per suit of the minor arcana, right? So the way I've mapped it out is like this. So each moon is broken up into 2 fortnights. So this is 2 for the magnetic, 2 for the lunar, 2 for the electric, etc. Down to here is the first 6 moons, and then here's the 7th, and then here's the 8th to the 13th moons. So the first fortnight belongs to the pentacles, and then swords, cups, wands. And then what I did here was, and I could continue going on, I could say pentacles, swords, cups, wands, pentacles, swords, cups, wands, pentacles, swords, cups, wands. I could do it like that, but I want to show here perfect mirror symmetry. So what we have here is pentacle, swords, cups, wands, and then now we're going through these 4 but backwards. So wands, cups, swords, pentacles, and then we're flipping it again. So pentacles, swords, cups, wands. The 7th moon stands apart, and so now we're mirroring it up here. So wands, cups, swords, pentacles, pentacles, swords, cups, wands, wands, cups, swords, pentacles. And so this part would start it again here. So again, perfect mirror symmetry, at least for the 12 moons. So the main thing to note here is that I don't have the Bible verse that I was going to reference for this, but one thing to note is the painting of the Last Supper. So your painting of the Last Supper is your first 6 disciples, Jesus, and then the last 6 disciples. So what they're encoding of all 12 disciples with Jesus as that 7 in the center is not only the septenary gematria cipher, but also this aspect of the first 6 moons, the 7th in the center, and then the last 6 moons, right? Which each of them have 28 phalanges, right, on their, of their fingers. So that right there is encoding the 364 calendar, which also 777, like the jackpot or blackjack, that's encoding this calendar. The traditional playing cards is also encoding this calendar because you have 4 suits, you have spades, diamonds, hearts, and clubs, each one of them having 13 cards, unlike the tarot, which has 14 cards per suit. But again, 13 and 14 both relating to, or both encoding pi together, right? Because if you have a diameter of 1, right, so 13, 14, right, you have a diameter of 1, then 3, 1, 4, 1, 5. So 13, 14, and 15 all together are encoding pi, which are the digits between the septenary values for Holy and Bible, as well as many other things. But yeah, 13 cards per suit of the traditional playing cards. You triangulate 13, right? So you have 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13. That's 91. 91 cards per suit. Or, sorry, a value of 91 per suit. 91 times 4 is 364. This is encoded in the Pyramid of Kukulkan. And many other things. There are 91 days per season of the Hob, right? So you have 91 days for spring, 91 for summer, 91 for autumn, and 91 for winter, right? All these things encoding the calendar. The 777 or 777 being 21, that being, the jackpot and blackjack, respectively. The 777 is, if you multiply them, so 7 times 7 times 7, or 7 cubed, that's 343, and then 7 plus 7 plus 7 is 21. If you add them together, 343 plus 21, that's 364. So, again, many of the things, the mathematics that are in casino games are actually encoding all these calendrical systems. So, just wanted to point that out. So, again, we have, for the 12 moons, we have perfect mirror symmetry, right? So, just how this one ends, it would begin again here. Perfect symmetry, right? The 7th moon stands apart, and this is how I think it works. So you have 28 days in the moon, right? If we have 56 cards, so the entire minor arcana fits within the resonant moon. Unlike the other 12, the entirety of the minor arcana fits within the resonant moon, right? So the way I believe it works is like this. So it begins, so the first day of the resonant moon begins with the very first, so we're going in the traditional order of pentacles, swords, cups, and wands, right? Or earth, air, water, fire, right? Just like rubedo, albedo, negredo, and Synchronostats, right? So the first day would begin with the first card and the last card, right? So it would be the Ace of Pentacles as well as the King of Wands, right? And so if you were to make a list of all the minor arcana cards, right, starting with the entire suit of the Pentacles, the entire suit of Swords, the entire suit of Cups, and the entire suit of Wands, right, in an entire list, the first day of the moon would start with the first card and the last card. And then the second day, it would go inwards. So it would go to the next card of the Pentacle suit, but the card before the King of Wands, right, which is the Queen of Wands. And it would keep going inwards until you get to the very end, which is the very center, right? Again, this is entirely all speculation, but it's essentially showing how there is a mathematical significance to the fortnights of your 13 lunar calendar and the minor arcana, because there are 56 cards of your minor arcana, right? This is just one example of where what I'm showing you is there's perfect symmetry. And what I'm basically trying to point out is that the tarot is a calendar system, and that what they're encoding within the cards is not really so much meant for divination, which you can use it for divination, although I don't. What I believe, one of the main parts of what the tarot is telling us is time cycles. So, but aside from the minor arcana, there's also the major arcana, which is made up of 22 archetypes, right? So you have the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, the Lovers, etc. See, this is where I think the major arcana is is synchronized with not only the cube journey, or the two main cycles of each moon, but they're also encoding the septenary cipher, right? And see, this is what leads me to understand where 22 comes into play when it comes to these things, right? So, so just as a, you know, a refresher course, the two main cycles of each lunar phase, right, are your first 6 days, right, and your last 6 days. So days of your 28-day moon, right, you have days 1 to 6, and then 23 to 28. Those are 12 days altogether, right, beginning on the 1st to the 6th, and then once it hits the 7, it begins the other cycle. But then that cycle goes all the way to the 22nd, and then it ends that cycle, and then days 23 to 28 are the remainder of the first cycle of the first 6 days, right? So the first 6 and the last 6, that 12-day cycle, is what I call the matrix cycle, right? It is a feminine cycle that focuses more upon the organization of the entirety, right? The whole, the collective, if you will, the matrix. Whereas days 7 to 22 is what is known as the Warrior's Cube Journey, which is a 16-day cycle. And that refers to spiraling into the center of the cube, being in the cube for a few days, and then spiraling back out. So the first 6 days are reorganization of the matrix, and then we begin an internal journey, right? And then after those 16 days, we return, and then the last 6 days go to the second half of the matrix cycle. So one thing to note here is that the words Holy Bible in septenary gematria sum 28. Holy Bible sums 28, which we have here, right? It's, again, another way of encoding that the book is synchronized to our hands to show us that we are the living spirit and the living word of God, right? And written on fleshly tables of the heart, and not written with ink, right? So holy sums 12, Bible sums 16, right? So the two distinctions here are 12 and 16, right? Summing 28 altogether for your lunar phase, but made up of a cycle of 12 and a cycle of 16. And note that the Warrior's Cube Journey, right, starts on days 7 and it ends on day 22, which, as we know, the word 7 in septenary gematria based on the number 7 sums 22, and 22 divided by 7 is your first set of whole numbers that you can use to get pi, through division, of course, right? So set days 7 to 22 of every moon is connected to the ratio of pi. Why? Because it is a thing of consciousness. It is a thing of the internal human experience. And that's what pi is all about. Pi is taking a circle's circumference and setting a diameter amidst that circle, right, which cuts it in half, right? It sizes the circum, if you will, and it gives us duality, right, which gives us a never-ending tail of digits that go on and on and on and on forever without repeating, right? Endless creation that's always different, right? And those two halves of the circle are not only our 13 and 13 letters, right, our heaven and our earth, but it is also male and female, and it is the union of these two which creates life, right? So days 7 to 22, right? It's a human thing. It's a primal thing, right? It's a consciousness thing. Whereas the matrix cycle, the 12, has more to do with the auxiliary aspects of our collective and the world at large, right? Is the coordination of the world at large. I have another video where I actually talk about those two cycles, and also the cube journey. But another way that pi is encoded within the cube is from this corner, right, all the way across diagonally, still on the bottom, sorry. Yeah, from this corner to this corner to this corner, right, is the square root of 2. Right, so if this is a cube of 1, this would be the square root, or I guess it doesn't really matter the size, but this is the square root of 2 from this corner to this corner. Now, from this corner to up here diagonally is the square root of 3, right? So you have 2 square roots that you can find in the cube, one diagonally across on the same half or the same side, and then one diagonally across to the other side, right? And that's the square root of 2 and the square root of 3. Well, if you add the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3, it's 3.146, which is a really close approximation of pi. So that's another way that pi is encoded within the cube, right? It was actually, oh, well, no, that was something else completely different. But yeah, the reason why pi is encoded in the cube is because the very center, the heart of the cube, is that circle, right? It is that connection to God. It is in the center, right? Just like how I talk about with the Tao Te Ching, which actually, one interesting thing to mention regarding the Tao Te Ching is that Tao is, not only the way, right, in Chinese philosophy, right, the whole basis of the Tao Te Ching, right, but Tao is also the mathematical ratio of 6.28, right? 6.28 being a circle's circumference to its radius, right? Because if you're not dealing with a diameter, but half of a diameter, and you make that diameter 1, or that radius 1, then the circumference would be double that of pi. So it'd be 6.28, etc., 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 essentially 2 pi, right? Now, what it shows us through the geometry is that it is a circle with a line that goes to the center of the circle, all right? So the Tao, actually, let me point something out real quick. So I actually just opened up Christmas presents, right? And one of my gifts was this, something that I've been wanting, the Stephen Mitchell translation of the Tao Te Ching, which one thing I will point out, Tao 19, right? So Tao 19, which is very significant, but it says, throw away holiness and wisdom, and people will be 100 times happier. Throw away morality and justice, and people will do the right thing. Throw away industry and profit, and there won't be any thieves. If these 3 aren't enough, just stay at the center of the circle and let all things take their course. So circle is a very prominent word in most languages. There's very little doubt that he would have mistranslated this, but it's saying stay at the center of the circle. Stay at the center of the circle, right? In Tao 19, right? So again, Tau, the mathematical ratio, spelt the way of the Greek letter, right? T-A-U, whereas the Tau is T-A-O, but it's phonetically identical unless you consider it as the Tao with the letter D, but D and T are interchangeable. But anyways, so the geometry of the mathematical ratio of Tau is a circle's circumference and a line that goes to the center. So when they say stay at the center of the circle, what is the Te Ching, right? So you have the Te Ching of the Tao. If we consider the Tao the mathematical ratio, well, what is the teaching of the Tao? To return to the center, right? The center of the cube, right? The center of you and the center of the universe, right? Which is not only Polaris, right? The center of the firmament, right? The throne, the high place, the high room, the high ram, but it's also the what is it? No one can go into the Father but by me. So you have to go through the sun, which the Mayans had the concept of the Cook Sun Sum, which was a thread that connected the sun to the center of the galaxy, right? So we go through the Son to connect back to the Father. So, one interesting thing that I noticed regarding that. Well, first off, Tau 19. It's Tau number 19, and if you don't know, the number 19 is significant when it comes to the circle, when it comes to the 360 degrees of the circle. So, so the number 19, for instance, is, you look at the divisors of 19, right? And they sum to, what is it? Sorry, my bad. If you take 19 and you triangulate it, right? So you triangulate 19, you get the number 190, right? 190, its divisors, if you add them all up, it sums 360. So again, here's a connection. If you triangulate 19, you get 190, add up its divisors, that's 360. Here's another connection. 19 times 19 is 361, which is the 360 degrees of the circle around 1. And the rule of Kalel especially applies to this because it is forming a circle, which the rule of Kalel is all based on the number 0, right? So that's two different ways that the number 19 is connecting us back to the circle, and that's Tau 19. And it's telling you, stay in the center of the circle specifically. There's many other instances where it tells you to return or stay in the center, right? Return to or stay in the center. But that specific one says stay in the center of the circle. And what is the teaching of the mathematical ratio of Tau? The line that connects the perimeter to the center, right? So another way that the number 19 connects to the circle is through the Vitruvian Man, right? Which also includes the square. So you have the circle and the square because both of them have 360 degrees. And the man's toes and fingers are touching the perimeter of that circle and square, right? So again, it's showing us that our fingers and our toes are connected to the perimeter because it is the very extremities of our body, right? And how many fingers and toes do we have? 20 altogether. And if we apply the rule of Kalel, we see that the vigesimal system, a system of 20, is also seen as 0 to 19. Right? So 1 to 20 or 0 to 19. That's a third way that the number 19 is connected to the circle. That's Tau 19. The last thing I'll mention regarding Tau is this. If you take the first, okay, so Tau is the mathematical ratio of 2 pi, which is 6.28. 6.28. Actually, I'll mention this first. 6, if we look at it as 6 and 28, right, 6.28, look at it as 6 and 28, what do we get? We get the first two perfect numbers, right? And they are the only, perfect number is a number whose divisors will sum itself, right? Proper divisors. But look at this. So they are the only two perfect numbers in the entire centesimal system. So from 1 to 100 or 0 to 99, they are the only two perfect numbers. In fact, I think the next perfect number is 496. It's either 436 or I think it's 496 though, but anyways. So 6.28. So it's based on the first number, which is the head of it, right, is 6. And then after the period, you get the endless tail, right, of the ratio, right? And that begins with 28, right? 6.28, right? Just like 3.14, right? So it's all based on the number 6, though. That's the first digit, 6. If we add up the first 6 digits of Tau, which are 6.28318, if we add 6 plus 2 plus 8 plus 3 plus 1 plus 8, it sums 28. So in other words, if we triangulate the digits of Tau to the 6th position, we get 28, right? And another interesting thing is that if we go to the 8th position, so we triangulate it to the first 8 digits of Tau, the 7th digit would be 5, and the 8th digit is 3, right? So if we look at the first 8 digits of tau and add them up, it sums to 36, right? And 36 is also the triangulation of the number 8, right? It is the triangulation of the number 8, right? And what's interesting about that is out of the from the numbers 1 to 260, so referring to the kin of the Tzolk'in, 36 is not only of the magic square of the sun, which is the central magic square, right? It also triangulates into 666, right? Which goes back to the sun, it goes back to Jesus, all that, right? But 36 is the only kin who is a triangular square, right? So it is both a triangle number and a square number, because if you triangulate 8, you get 36, and 6 times 6 is 36. So it is the only kin number that is both a triangle and a square number, right? So I thought that was really interesting. But what's interesting as well is that I'll try not to talk too much about tau, but this is becoming a video about tau. But actually, I don't have that much about tau. But what's interesting is that it is the ratio of tau is a common, one of the probably the most common approximation of it is 6.28. Right? Again, the first two perfect numbers, 6 and 28. It's 6.28. So you can look at it as 6 to 8. 6 to 8, which 6 plus 2 is 8, right? But 6 to 8 is like saying the numbers from 6 to 8, right? So 6, 7, 8, right? 6, 7, 8. What's interesting about that is that if we look at the 7, or the triangulation of the first 7 digits of tau, right, it sums 33, right? Because 7 is in that very central, right? So not only do we get the 6th triangulation, which is 28, 6, 28, the 7th would be 33, and the 8th is 36, making that connection with 36 like I just mentioned, but the 7th is 33. And you want to know what's interesting about that? Is the 33rd digit of pi is the first 0, or at least, yeah, I'm pretty certain. I actually just heard that in a Marty video just a little while ago, but, you know, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain he's correct, because he had double-checked in the video. But yes, the 33rd digit of pi is where you get your first 0, right? And again, we all know the importance of the number 0. Furthermore, what's interesting about that, so it's saying 6 to 8, right? And we have a super important significance of the 6th digit of tau, the 7th, and the 8th, right? Because the 7th, triangulate the first 7 digits of tau, you get 33. 33 points to the 33rd digit of pi, which is the first 0. And then the first 0 that we get with the ratio of tau is the next one after 8, which is 9. So 9 is the first 0. The 9th digit of tau is the first 0. So, yeah. I just think that's just really that's really fascinating because of what it's showing us, right? What it's pointing to. So, where was I actually? Can't remember what I was talking about before. Oh yeah, I was talking about the cube journey. My bad. I totally went off on a tangent there. Yeah, so pi is encoded into the cube, right? So again, the cube journey, right? Cube, the word sums 16, right? Which is the number of days in the cube journey, right? The 16-day cycle from days 7 to 22. The word cube sums 16, right? Whatchamacallit? The number 16 is made up of the digits 1, 6. Why? Because it is 6 centered around 1, right? And that begins on the 7th day, right? So the major arcana, right, is made up of 22 cards. Now, how does this fit within the moon cycle if the moon cycle has 28 days, right? Well, which is interesting because this is all and I just realized this actually as well. So remember, okay, so the first 6 and the last 6 days are one cycle of the moon, right? It's a 12-day cycle made up of the first 6 and the last 6. Then you have days 7 to 22, which is the central 16. That's the other cycle, the cube cycle. right? So what you do is you go through the major arcana, right, in order. So you would begin with the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, and the Hierophant, and that would be day 6, right? And so that's the first 6 days is, synchronized with the matrix cycle, right? When you go through the Fool to the Hierophant, right? And it stops there. And then on day 7, that begins the cube journey. Then you go into the next one, which is the Lovers. And then it would be Chariot, Strength, the Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, Justice, the Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and then the World. And once you get to the World, at least I think I said all those correctly. Anyways, so once you get to the World on the 22nd day, which ends the cube journey, right? And you get to the World, which is the last tarot card, because there's only 22 in the major arcana. What do you do for the last 6 days? Well, just like the cipher, you go through the first 6, but backwards. So days 23 to 28 would be the first 6 backwards. So Hierophant, Emperor, Empress, High Priestess, Magician, Fool. So you go through the first 6 in a row. Then you have the cube journey, right, which goes through the rest of the cards. And then you mirror the first 6 days backwards, just like the cipher. The cipher is based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 7 would be that cube journey, right? That 16-day cycle going from days 7 to 22, which encodes pi, just like 7 in the cipher in multiple different ways. And then the last 6 days would be the first 6, just like in the cipher, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Hierophant, Emperor, Empress, High Priestess, Magician, Fool. So it would be the first 6 days, and the last 6 days would be, again, the matrix cycle, right? So yeah, that's at least what I think that is encoding. But again, it needs people to think about it and reflect upon their experience through time in order to corroborate whether or not the cards have significance, right? Again, I don't use the tarot for divination. I use them to gauge, or as a synchronometer, right? Because that's what all these Mayan calendars are. They're synchronometers. They measure synchronicity. And I'd like for more people to understand what it is. Eventually, one of these days, I'm going to make a graphic and be able to show you all the geometry of these things. But anyways, so, yeah. So there's different ways that the minor and major arcana are basically lined up and synchronized with our Hob, right? That give each of the tarot cards different archetypal natures as they go through time, just like the I Ching, right? The 64 hexagrams of the I Ching relate to the 64 harmonics of the Tzolk'in, right? Again, that 33rd, that central of all 65, is stands apart, right? So it's different. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And the last thing I'll say, and this is what I had just realized because of Tau, right? There are 28 days in the moon, right? And this whole mirroring aspect of the first 6 and the last 6, that's being highlighted. It's like 6 and 7 is creating this distinction, right? It's creating this split, this separation, because the first 6 days are the first part of the matrix cycle, and then the last 6 are part of that first 6, right? And then days 7 to 22 would be your cube journey. So Tau is saying 6.28. 6.28. So maybe, right? Which, maybe what it's telling you is that first 6 of the 28. 6 of 28. I don't know. 6 plus 22 is 28. But anyways, I don't want to, which is interesting because in Revelation 1:20, the word 7 is mentioned 6 times. 7, the word in septenary gematria, sums 22. So it's 22 times 6, right? Which gives you 132, right? So if, I think I've already mentioned this, but so in Revelation 1:20, it says the mystery of the 7 stars, the mystery of this, what is it? The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and this the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches, right? It mentions 7 6 times, right? Which if the word 7 in septenary gematria sums 22, right? You multiply the septenary gematria value for 22 6 times. So 22 times 6, that's 132, which if you multiply just the value of 7 6 times, because 7's mentioned 6 times, then you get 42, and 132 divided by 42 is pi, just like the word 7 encodes pi. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Again, you know, a lot of these things are just related to timing cycles, speculation. It's up to other people to decide my fate, you know, because a lot of this I'm dealing with, again, holographic, prismatic, mathematical matrices of God. So it's like, you know, the way it reveals itself materially is through synchronicity. So it's up to everybody to judge for themselves what they think the truth is. But I definitely think that tau, or 6.28, is referencing this whole aspect of, you know, the mirroring aspect of the first 6 and the last 6 days of each moon cycle, and days 7 to 22 belonging to the cube journey, etc. So, yeah, there's more that I need to corroborate more regarding the cube and the number 16. Because as far as I'm aware, I don't see how 16 relates to it geometrically, right? Or mathematically, at least. But I know that it's there, right? Other than the fact that the word cube sums 16 in gematria. And 16 is 1 and 6, right? But anyways, so, which is interesting too, because if you know, you say you double the cube and now you have 2 cubes, right? Which, let's say that we're mirroring the cube, or we're just putting the cube up to a mirror, right? Well, what is the mirror of 16? It's 61. And 61 is the 18th prime number. And what is the 18? Again, the 18 is the white mirror. So, again, yeah, this is, you know, definitely more stuff that I need to figure out. But anyways, so what I want to talk about now is a way that the Tao Te Ching is mathematical. Like I already talked about how Tau 19 is encoding is clearly encoding the ratio of Tau. Right? It's clear at this point. If you can't see that in Tau 19, the way it's saying, you know, stay in the center of the circle, and it's etymology of Tao Te Ching. Like if you can't see that, you know, then, you know, whatever. But one thing I will say is that the Tao Te Ching is encoding various different mathematical cycles of time, right? So there are 81 verses altogether in the Tao Te Ching, right? So it's a matrix of it's the magic square of the moon, right? And I actually made a video regarding the magic square of the moon and some of the correlations I discovered with it. That Yggdrasil, right? The geometry of Yggdrasil is actually encoded twice into the magic square of the moon, right? So if you make the magic square of the moon like a diamond, right? So you make it like this rather than, you know, the flat square, you know, magic square that they make. If you make it into a diamond and you make an Yggdrasil, right? You know, the chakra system of 5 and then the 2 on the sides, you know, like here, let me I've actually made a video about this, and it's pretty wild how the Yggdrasil and the magic square of the moon are actually synchronized with each other. But let me find it real quick. Yeah, this thing. So if you form, let me turn down my brightness. So if you form this geometry, you know, from corner to corner in the magic square of the moon, you can make a horizontal one and a vertical one, right? So one like this and one like this, right? So, actually, I think I have a picture of it from my last, when I made the video. That way I can just show you real quick. I think that would be better. Oh, it's this way. Let's turn this page, not that page. Where is it at? Where is it at? Oh, I colored it in. Dang it. I colored it in. But anyways, if you want to see the the magic square with the two Yggdrasils, then go back and watch my video called The Magic Number 41. Because, again, if you look at the centiger of 81, so if you lay out the integers of 1 to 81, what is its centiger? Well, 41. You can easily tell the centiger of numbers like 11, 21, 31, 41, and 51 by a simple rule, right? So if you have 1 to 11, 6 is in the center. If you have 1 to 21, 11 is in the center. 1 to 31, 16. 1 to 41, 21. So it's going in these increments of 5, right? 1, 6, 11, 16, 21, 26, 31, 36, etc., right? It's really easy to figure it out. But anyways, because 81 begins with the digit that is an even, it'll have 41, it'll have one of the multiples, one of the, not multiples, but, like 1, 11, 21, 31, 41. If the entire system begins with an even number, then it'll have one of those in the center. So, like, for instance, the one between 1 and 21 is 11. The one between 41 and 41 is 21. 1 and 61, 31, etc., etc. It's real simple. Once you get, like, at the hang of it and you understand what these numbers are talking about, you can easily see it. So, yeah, not only is 41 the centiger of 1 to 81, so 81's centiger, or its mean, if you will, would be 41. That is the very center digit from 1 to 81. And what's also interesting is that the very center of the magic square of the moon is 41, right? The very center one, right? This applies to all the magic squares of the odd numbers. So the magic square of Saturn, Mars, Venus, and the moon, right? Which is really bizarre. It's really strange. I don't understand it. The magic squares are chock full to the brim and more of these sacred mathematics, and I implore you to go explore them, because the things that you can find in them is ridiculous. Like, for instance, I don't want to go into that too much. Go back and watch my video called The Magic Number 41 if you want to know more about that. But and I actually explain one specific Tao Te Ching cycle that synchronized up with time, but this one I'll explain in this video. So the Tao is made up of 81 stanzas, 81 poems, 81 verses, right? Chapters, whatever you want to call them. There are 81 short poems, and so you're dealing with the number 81. 81, again, is the total number of squares in the magic square of the moon, which is 9 times 9. So it's a 9 by 9 square, right? Now, how does this fit within timing cycles? Do you just repeat it, go 1 to 81, and then 1 to 81, and then 1 to 81? Do you just do that over and over again ad infinitum? Well, no, because it wouldn't fit evenly into the cycle of the time, right? Now, sure, maybe if you keep stacking them over a long period of time, like, say, 10, 20 years, maybe you can get it to where the cycle will end perfectly just with that end of that cycle, and then it would start it all over again, so it would fit evenly. Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm trying to map these things either within the Hob, so within the 365 day cycle, 364, 365, or to fit it in the Tzolk'in, right? If it can't fit within those cycles, then, any sort of cycle beyond that would be way too complicated to keep in, and to keep in synchronization with, because the more that you can deal with, the current situation with humanity and where we're at right now in terms of our intelligence and everything like that, it's better to deal with short periods of time, because we need to remember to stay in the present, right? So this is one way that I'm showing you that the Tao Te Ching is synchronized with the yearly cycle. Actually, two separate ways. But it's essentially the same template, just it begins on 2 different points. So this one begins on both the magnetic moon, and then another one begins on the solar moon, right? But I'll get into that, I guess, at the end of the video. But this is the way that it works. So you have 81 verses, right? Well, it applies to the 91-day cycles, right? So for each season of the Hob, right, or the 364, is made up of 91 days. So you have, like I said, 91 days of spring, 91 for summer, 91 for autumn, 91 for winter. Well, where does 91 connect to 81? Well, let me show you. So if you break each of the Tau verses up into sets of 9, right, because you have 81, which is 9 sets of 9, right, 9 times 9. Just like the magic square of the moon is 9 columns of 9, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to break it up into 9 sets of 9, right? So we have Taus 1 through 9, 10 through 18, 19 through 27, 28 through 36, 37 to 45, 46 to 54, 55 to 63, 64 to 72, and 73 to 81. So it's 9 sets of 9, right? 9 of 9, right? Well, in between each one, we have gaps, right? Which, again, you know, one of the main principles of the law of time is different gaps, right? Different times where whatever cycle that you're dealing with, there are these empty, and I know that most people would probably consider that filler, but I promise you, once you get into following the law of time, you realize that these gaps are natural, right? These gaps are sort of like resetting, right? Which act as like different ways that the number 0 comes in to reset things and act as bridges, right? Especially when it comes to the Tao Te Ching cycles, because one of the main teachings of the Tao Te Ching is to not analyze things, not think about things. So if you're having these points in time where they act as gaps, where you to not read a verse, right, where there's no verse that applies to the day, it's telling you today is a day to trust your instinct, to not think about it, just act. What does Jesus say? Which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit unto your stature, right? Again, it's like there's nothing that you can think that increases your worth or not. You know, it's, again, up to your self-sacrifice, all that. But now we're talking about the gaps, right, which are days where there's no Tao verse, right? And this is where the it is geometrically symmetrical, right? So before the first 9, there would be a gap, and then a gap in between each 9, right? And then a gap at the very end, right? Perfect symmetry. You have 10 gaps for every 81 verses, right? So 10 gaps for every 81 verses. That means you have 10 days where there's gaps and 81 days where you have a verse for each day of 81, right? So 10 plus 81 is 91, right? And you repeat this template for every season. So you go through this template once for spring, once for summer, once for autumn, once for winter, right? But see, again, that would be 4. That would be 4 seasons, 4 sets of these 91 days, 10 gaps and 81 verses, right? So going through spring, you go through it in order, right? And then summer, you'd go through it backwards. And then autumn, you'd go through it forwards again. And then winter, you'd come back up through it backwards. And then the next spring, you'd go back through it again. So again, there's another way that there's mirror symmetry, right? And one interesting thing to note is that if you have, like, say that, okay, so the blank parts in here with this central road, that would be, you know, your 9 by 9 grid of the magic square, right? Well, around the perimeter, you have 1 to 11, 21 to 31, and then 40, and then back to 1. So you have 40 going around the magic square of the moon, right? 40. And how many gaps would there be in total for 4 seasons? If for each season there are 10 gaps, well, then how many would you have? You'd have 40 gaps. And what's in the very center? 41. because it starts on 1, ends on 40, 40 and 1, 41. Again, it's up to people to decide, you know what I mean? For most of these, I don't really follow them daily because I just have this natural knack of like downloading these codes and integrating them in various things with the law of time, septenary gematria, the Holy Bible, the breath codes. I have a natural knack at being able to put these things together. Now, my point of showing people all of this is that maybe what I'm talking about, it's somebody's specialty. Maybe that's one thing that they really want to get into. There's more. There's so much of this holy science to dig into and for us to figure out and synchronize, right? And integrate into our consciousness, right? So I'm just showing all the various different correlations of things that I've done in the past that to show people how all these things are geometrically and mathematically precise. How the law of time is actually synchronized up with the Tao Te Ching. It's synchronized up with Yggdrasil. It's synchronized up with the magic squares. It's synchronized up with septenary gematria, the Holy Bible, Lord Jesus Christ, the breath. All these things are all based upon natural math that's encoded into our universe. So things like the I Ching, the Tarot, the runes, the magic squares, the Tao, all those things, they're mathematical codes. And it is up to us to synchronize it and figure out what is in there. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's just various different ways in which these things are synchronized up, you know? And so each one of these things is like, for instance, of the runes, right? There are 24 different runes, right? 24 different runes, and there are 24 hours of the day. What if each one of the runes synchronizes with an hour of the day? Of the 12 zodiacal signs, it is said that every 2 hours of the day is governed by one of these zodiac signs. So every 2 hours of the day is given the archetype of that zodiac sign, right? Again, I mean, how deep do you want to understand this? You know, it's up to you to decide that. But I'm just showing you that there's various different ways in which all of this is synchronized. You see what I'm saying? There was something else that I wanted to point out. But anyways, I can't remember right off the top of my head. But my point, the main point, like I said, other than hopefully maybe reaching someone who wants to go more in depth to this, and maybe they just didn't know that that's what they wanted to look for. But another thing is to just, again, to show that our universe is intelligently designed, right? And that the various different ancient traditions and cultures, there's been an infinite lineage going back to God knows when of people who have shown us these things, right? And it keeps cropping up in history, and then it would disappear, come back, disappear. Well, this is that time where we're going to make it stick, right? This is the time when we're going to really uncover these things and really stitch them together and put them together. Because we're barely just scratching the surface. That's the whole nature of these things. It's not done just for the acquisition of knowledge, but it's done to enlighten people. It's being done to fix this earth, to heal people, to make them joyous, to make them to love their creator and to love their universe and love their fellow men and women, right? To love their brothers and sisters, to love their fathers and their mothers, to unite together and help each other, rather than all this crap that we're being fed these days where we're just stepping on each other and we don't care about each other. Meanwhile, we're totally disconnected from natural synchronicity, like the law of time, our breath, Jesus Christ. See, that's the thing that we need to get back in touch with, right? Because otherwise we're just it's going to happen regardless, right? The total enlightenment of the planet is going to happen, but right now we're just delaying it. And I just want to tell all you sinners out there, how long are we going to delay this? You know, how long are we going to, because people are currently suffering in this moment. If you truly care about other people and yourself, then you will get behind this and understand these things and spread the knowledge of these things. Teach yourself and teach other people. Heal yourself and heal other people. That's essentially the end goal of it all. So, yeah, those are some of the things that I wanted to talk about. Just give people a broader idea of their ancient traditions and these artifacts and relics of the past, like the tarot, the runes, the I Ching, you know, all these things. Like, the ancients who discovered this knew what they were, what the whole point of this is, right? They all carried that same tradition, whether they were in one culture in one part of the world or they were in another culture on the other side of the world. They were all doing the same thing. They were finding these holographic and prismatic codes embedded within our world that are embedded within us. And they were digging it up and they were synchronizing it and not stitching it together because it's already stitched together, but they were transcribing it from the holographic universe down into the physical so that they can share it with other people and so that they can see it, just like I've done in these notebooks here. You know, one of my main goals is to have more graphics later on and to have a website, hopefully. But there's also various different, you know, steps that I have to take, considering that that I do not desire to charge people money for this. Like, I just can't do it. You know, I will accept gifts, I will accept donations, but I will not charge people money for this. That's not part of me, you know. But anyways, I'm trying to think if there's something else that I needed to say. Anyways, yeah, there's a lot of things that I could say, but I think I'm gonna wrap it up now. You know, just about the subject matter and what I was, you know, referring to and everything like that. So I'll catch y'all on the flip side. You'll have a nice night.